This is Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon. Mitch LaFon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon, and joining me on the phone this time it is legendary Yes singer Jon Anderson. His Thousand Hands World Tour commences or restarts on July 24th, or in our case, tomorrow. Now, I will say this about the interview. First of all, Jon was absolutely delightful. I think we were given 15 or 20 minutes, and it went on for about 45. So kudos to Jon for being so gracious. Now, if you were with me last week on Mitch Marathon Month, I interviewed Stone Temple Pilots singer Jeff Goot. And I had to do it while I was on the road, and I had to use the internal mic on the computer. And the interview went great, and Blabbermouth and Loudwire and Tone Deaf and all kinds of sites picked up the Jeff interview. And this interview with Jon was done on exactly the same day. In fact, I did Jon first, and then I did Jeff. I think I did Jon at 1:30 and then Jeff at 3. Anyway, so I had to use the same setup, the computer's internal mic. Listen, I was on the road, and so, but the interview is great. You know, you hear the guest the same way as any other week. The only thing that you'll notice is that I'm a little less present in the mix. And I'm sure if you ask my wife, she'd be like, yeah, less Mitch talking is probably a good thing. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. So the interview is coming up, 45 minutes. And I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it. Jon was just absolutely terrific, and of course, you can head over to JonAnderson1000hands.com for more information about the new album and tour. And it's Jon Anderson, and it's 1000 like 1000 hands.com. So check that out. And while you're there on the internet, open another window. Click a new tab or whatever, and go over to loudtracks.com/Mitch to pick up a gorgeous Mitch Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon t-shirt, and be the envy of all your neighbors and friends. You know, the Washington Post earlier this week had an article written by someone who was apparently very, very grumpy about how he doesn't like going to outdoor shows. Now, you know, listen, my experience at outdoor shows is somewhat skewed. I generally have some kind of pass or some kind of guest pass, and I get to go backstage, and I get to have, you know, air-conditioned bathrooms and usually access to drinks, you know, water or Gatorade or whatever. So I don't have necessarily the same experience as the writer. Well, let's be fair about that. But to me, you know, listen, a show is a show is a show. Would I ever do a show just sitting up in the grass where I'm praying that it doesn't rain or I'm praying that it's not too hot? No. No. I'm sorry. That might sound a little snobby, but no, I'm not going to go sit in the grass and hoping, you know, that I don't go home soaking wet. Not going to happen. And, you know, some of the larger festivals around here and in Europe, they basically stick you in a field, a nice dusty field, and you get to spend 12 hours baking or freezing or getting wet. Yeah, not for me. Not for me. I'm an arena guy. You know, summer sheds are great as long as I'm sitting under the roof. And arena. You know what? I think I'm sounding as grumpy as the writer. But I don't want to be, because I love shows. A show is a show is a show. I'll take any show over no show. Let's be clear about that. But kind of curious as to what you, the fan, thinks. You know, are we being a little too wishy-washy about complaining about the weather? I mean, you know, is it kind of cool to be in a downpour while Metallica plays? Oh, probably. It's always cool when Metallica plays. But anyway, do go check out that article from the Washington Post. If you can't find it, head over to my Twitter on, what day did I post that? Well, in fact, July 22nd, yesterday. Scroll through my July 22nd feed on Twitter or Facebook or the Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon Facebook. On a July 22nd, posted it early in the morning, so go check, the post that I did before noon and read that article, respond there if you want. I'd love to know what you think, but, okay, I think I'm like the writer. Ultimately, I prefer an arena show. I saw Guns N' Roses last year 3 times outdoors, and I'm not sure I'd go again if it wasn't in the arena. If it's not going to be, at least in my case, the Bell Center in Montreal, I don't know if I really want to go stand outside. I mean, around here, it's a pain in the ass. The outdoor venues don't have any parking around. You have to park in the city and then take a subway out. The sites are only accessible by subway, and so it becomes a whole adventure. And if you want to leave, it becomes an adventure. And yeah, I got to say, now I'm rambling, but you know what? If it's not for a pass, yeah, give me an arena show. Okay. All right, writer in the Washington Post, and I forget your name, and I do apologize, but okay. Arena shows win. Indoor shows win. Club shows win. But anyway, Jon Anderson, 1,000 Hands World Tour, great content, great interview. First show in Woodstock, New York. I was actually going to go to that show, but something came up and I can't. And unfortunately, I won't be in any of the shows, around any of the other shows that he's playing. But hopefully, after September 1st, he'll come back and do some more shows. But here we are, Jon Anderson, 1000hands.com. And here we go, my interview with the one, the only, the unique Jon Anderson. We are speaking with the singer Jon Anderson. The new album is 1,000 Hands. Jon, always a pleasure to talk to you. And of course, your tour starts here on July 24th in Woodstock, New York. How are you?
I'm very good, Mitch. Good to hear you.
Yeah, so before we get into the album, because I really want to dig deep on that, over the years, you've had these health issues that have come up that have been very public. How are you doing health-wise? Are you back to being 100%?
Yeah, very, very good. I mean, everybody goes through it, especially when they're 60. There's a 60 to 70 sort of period where most people go through a lot of tough times physically, and I went through them, and now I'm in my 70s. I'm 75 next month, in October, I think. And I feel really great. Can't wait to get back on the road and do some more shows. I'm writing music every day. I'm doing singing this morning. I get up every morning. I love to get up and sing in the studio. I have a little cottage, and I got my studio there, and I just have a great time every morning singing.
Yeah, great. So let's talk about 1,000 Hands Chapter 1. This is an album that you started back in the 90s, and it's got Steve Howe on it, it's got Alan White on it, it's got a whole bunch of other players. Talk to me about the genesis of this project and why you started it and then why it got shelved, and how did we get back to revisiting it almost 30 years later?
Well, it's a phenomenon for me that I've been doing music over the past 20 years and I still haven't finished half of it, or actually a lot of it, and it's just percolating. So sometimes you create music and then you get on with life and tours and do another album. And I've got 4 projects that I really believe in that, one of them is 5 hours long and the other ones are 2 hours, 3 hours long, concept albums. And I know they're not going to get finished for another 10 years, and that's life. But getting back to 1,000 Hands, I started recording it in 1990 in Big Bear, and even got Chris Squire and Alan White to play on a couple of tracks at that time. And it never got finished because life takes over. And I put the tapes in my garage, and I had the best time, to be honest, when I was up in Big Bear with my friend Brian Chatton and a few other musicians. And I've never laughed as much in my life making an album. But we put the tapes in my garage for 26 years. It's unbelievable. And until this producer, Michael Franklin, got in touch and said, let's finish the album. So I said, okay, then, yeah. And thankfully, he seemed to know so many people, from Ian Anderson to Chick Corea, Billy Cobham, Tower of Power, and all these great, like Coriel, all these great musicians, and he put them on the album. So, in a way, bringing in a producer helped to push it forward, and we finished the album just 6 months ago, and we're just about to find a record company. So, the business these days isn't as clear as it used to be in the 60s and 70s and 80s, but now we've found a record company that really believes in the album. Everybody who's heard it love it. The reviews around the world, every other day I get a review from Paris, a review from England, Sweden, even Argentina. People love the album. So I can't be doing too many bad things with this.
No, it does sound great. When you take the tapes sort of out of the garage and you put them on and you listen to them, how much of the sort of original tapes made it to the final product, and how much do you go back and rethink it and say, "Ooh, that needs this part," or "Ooh, that part didn't work"? And how much of it is tinkered with, and how much is really what was recorded back then?
I think 2/3 of everything we did we kept, and that's a lot of 6 tracks actually, and that fulfilled the idea. And there was one track called "Now" that I listened to over and over, kept saying, it's 3 minutes long. It doesn't hang in for 3 minutes. So we start with 1 minute at the beginning of the album, 1 minute in the middle, and 1 minute at the end of "Now." So you have "Now" reappearing throughout the album, and that helps to sort of solidify the album. And one thing I must say, my voice sounds really good at the moment, and it sounds exactly the same as the songs that I recorded in the 90s. And we kept all the vocals from the 90s recordings. Plus, I'd sing along, do some harmonies, maybe change a couple of lyrics along the way. And it's very interesting that the album was made prior to a lot of voting going on. So the Activate Me song is all about voting and activate, really, come on, let's wake up. And we're going through that now. But we've got to wake up and realize who's running this country and why. It's so mismanaged on many levels and very confusing to a lot of people. And I'm an American now for 10 years, and I want a great America, a beautiful America, a sort of America that believes in what it started off to be, which was all people from all over the world coming here and being able to come here and be part of the American dream. I finished my political statement, and I'm not running for mayor. Sorry.
Well, it's all good. And I'm up in Canada. I'm up in Montreal. And, of course, Montreal has been a big supporter of Yes and everything that you've done over the years. You did mention that the album is going to come out and you found a record company, but it has been available sort of through, for the lack of a better word, direct marketing through your website or, for people who came to shows. Talk to me about the direct approach and working with fans. And then I want to sort of work my way into the survival and other stories, because I love the fact that you're a hands-on guy and that you use the technology, for good, in a sense, right? Where we're talking to fans, we're having, but talk to me about having the album available first, and when it comes out on a record company, does it change a little bit? Is there a bonus track, or do they still get that? And then just comment on that.
Okay. Well, basically, when we knew we were touring, we made some CDs and albums and made it available. But it was like self-releasing, because no record company was that interested, because, hey, who wants to get a guy who's nearly 75? What is he going to do to the music world? And I just think, I'm going to get out there and do some great performances. And like you say, Canadian people have always loved what Yes has done. I love Canada so much. And I was trying to get the agent to get us up to Canada with this show, but he just couldn't get his act together. So I don't know what we're going to do about the agent from now on.
You talk to me. I know some promoters. We'll help you out.
Please. I'd love to come up there.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I must say about Canada, they really are very progressive people, and the government is very progressive, and thank God that they ask for forgiveness to the Inuit Indians and the Indians of the northern parts of America. And that's a big thing that America here, this America, the Trump America, hasn't got a clue what they're doing in terms of interracial understanding, because we are all interconnected through the indigenous people. Anyway, I won't get into that one, but the idea of making sure that the album was available on the road, we made CDs and made some albums, and you just want people to be able to listen to the album. That's the main thing. When they come to a show, you know, the energy we get from the audiences are fantastic. We just have a great time.
So let me move over quickly here, and we'll get back to the tour and stuff. But Survival and Other Stories that came out in 2011 on July 26th. Yeah. So we're almost celebrating 8 years. You took to the website and you told folks, send me your music and I'm going to turn it into an album. How was that process for you? Was that a very rewarding process to, and
incredible?
Also, okay, and creativity. In terms of creativity, did you hear
incredible
stuff? Okay, so please talk to me about that.
You know, please, well, carry on if you want to say something. Go for it.
No, well, I was just going to say in terms of creativity, because you know when you're a musician and you've done Yes and you've done this and you've done sort of things for the last 50 years. Yeah. You get into a comfort zone and a pattern, and you like these sounds and that sound, and then somebody sends you a sound through your website, through Survive, and you go, oh, I never would have thought of that. So was it rewarding, first of all, to work with fans, but was it also rewarding musically, where you sort of had an awakening and went, oh, well, will you listen to that?
Yeah, it's a constant awakening, because when we could pass through the internet MP3, which was about 2004, I got in touch with Chris and Steve and said, hey, let's make music together, guys, you know, and, you know, we can do it through the internet. And, like, I never heard from them for 6 months. So I thought, well, obviously they don't care that much about doing it this way. So I just put an advert on my website, and I got hundreds of people sending me 1 minute of their music. And now I've got a pool of maybe 20 people that I'm in touch with all the time, creating music on different levels. And, as I said before, you know, I've got projects that will probably take another 5 years to finish, another 10 years maybe. But they're incredible projects, because when you work with somebody from France who has a different technique in music, it inspires me to sing a different style of song, even write stories around the music. I'm working with, you know, half a dozen people on these projects. And every now and again, somebody will send me a piece of music. There's a guy in Brazil sends me a lovely guitar piece of music, and I'll write a song for him and send it back. I'm not sure what's going to happen with it, but it inspires me, and all these musicians inspire me. And so every other day, I receive some music, and it's fantastic to wake up to new music and new styles and stuff.
Do you see yourself doing another album of that genre, or not genre, but with that concept where fans send stuff in and you get involved and they make another album?
Yeah. As I mentioned, I've been writing a project with a guy who lives in France. I call him El Chris, because he's a wonderful guy. And I've been writing a story to the dozen songs we wrote together. And the story is based on ideas that I have. And I've done this 3 or 4 times now with different people. But it takes a while to decide, is the story correct? Is the music sounds great, but the story isn't quite finished. I need to extend it. And then some guy comes along and wants to do illustrations for the story, make it into a sort of a comic book. That's another project called Violin Stories. So these things happen. And it's as though I'm surrounded by ideas and musical ideas and adventurous musical ideas, some even for theater. But at this moment in time, I don't know the right people in theater to be able to perform and put together projects like that. So maybe in the next 5 years, I'll bump into the right people at the right time.
Well, let's hope. Talk to me about the need to make new music, because you've been around, for over 50 years professionally. You could easily go out and put Yes on the marquee, or Jon Anderson on the marquee, and play an evening of greatest hits, and yet you You strive to make new music. You have, as you've described, all these projects. What drives you to do that? Why not just say, hey, I've done it. I'm going to go sing Owner of a Lonely Heart. Leave me alone.
That's really good. I like that. Actually, that wouldn't work for me. It would stop my energy. And I must tell you, I went to see the movie yesterday, a couple of weeks ago, and it changed blew my mind, actually. I cried all the way through. I don't know why. As soon as the guy played yesterday, and then he did another Beatles song. It's an incredible story.
It really is.
Fantastic recordings of the songs. I mean, I couldn't figure out why I was crying all the way through it. And then it took me a couple of days later. Oh yes, of course. I'm so grateful for the Beatles. I'm so grateful for them, because without them, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And that's what it is. Because me and my brother in 1963, there was a record on the radio called Love Me Do, and we'd heard about the Beatles out of Liverpool, and people were talking about them like crazy. My brother had a motorbike, and he said, let's go see them. So they were playing just outside of Liverpool, and we lived about 2 hours away, so we rode on the motorbike to see the Beatles in this sort of theater. Everybody was standing, mostly men, guys, young teenagers. I say men, they were guys. Mostly guys. A lot of girls at the front screaming at the end of the songs. They wouldn't scream during the course of the song. They just listened, and the band was so damn good, and they played their first album all the way through, Chuck Berry songs and Pharrell songs, and unbelievable to be in the company of that energy. And then me and my brother, we just started a band 6 months earlier. And so that's why when I saw the movie yesterday, it took me back to that moment in time when I first saw the Beatles and what they did to me and what they inspired me to be, which is what I am now, a musician. That I don't care about going out and doing the hits, because I've only had three or four. But the idea is to be always expanding your consciousness musically, and that's what dreams are made of.
Yeah, and that's what you keep doing. So, well, let me talk to you, because since you mentioned the Beatles, you did cover Every Little Thing on the very first Yes album. The band forms in 1968, in August of 68, which is when I was born. So I have an affinity. Wow. I have an affinity for Yes. You're the band that was formed in my month. But talk to me a little bit about the musical evolution, because, at the time you've got the Beatles, you've got the Rolling Stones, there's Elvis Presley around the corner, there's sort of this pop rocky kind of thing going, and Yes's music is more complicated, more diverse. You're not doing 2.5-minute singles, you're doing longer songs. Was there a sort of risk to be Yes in that environment?
No. Not one bit. It was the idea, the door is opened, and there was no barriers anymore about music, because I was listening then to, Frank Zappa, as well as when I'm thinking about Neil Young's band, that was, I can't remember the name now. But, you listen to all these...
Crazy Horse, right? Neil Young and Crazy Horse?
Crazy Horse. No, before that, when he was with...
Buffalo Springfield?
Sorry?
Was it Buffalo Springfield?
Buffalo Springfield, yeah. Buffalo Springfield. All these bands that were happening in the late 60s inspired me to sort of, and there were some great writers that, inside my paper cup was a guy, Jimmy Webb. He did an album with, Fifth Dimension. And we actually did a couple of those songs in our first Yes shows. And of course, the Beatles extended the song. We rearranged America a year later. A great song by Paul Simon. So there was really so much happening that there was no sort of consciousness to make a hit single, because I felt I was too old, for one thing, to be a pop star. And it just didn't really ring with me or Chris Squire or the guys in the band that we wanted to be pop stars. It was only years later that we had one hit, which was Roundabout. We wanted to make great albums. I think it's probably because, Pete Townsend did the incredible, the Who album. What was that called? Gosh, my memory's sinking here. Tommy.
Tommy, yeah.
And these kind of things are happening, and it all evolves through the incredible time of '67 with Sgt. Pepper, what you experienced, Jimi Hendrix, and all these kind of musicians coming through with albums like the Beach Boys, the Stones, and everybody expanding their musical idea that an album is an album, not just have a hit single and the rest is just, let's do it with just stuff, No, you make an album of music, you go through that experience. And that was the joy of being Yes for many, many years. It was always an adventure. Sometimes we were riding very high, and sometimes we screwed up. But that's life. You can't be perfect all the time. You try to do your best all the time.
Was there, because you look at some of the song lengths, you're at 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, and then we get close to the edge where all of a sudden it's an entire side. How did record companies react to that? Were they telling you to, hey boys, get it down to 3 minutes, or you were just not a singles band and your thing was about performing live, and the record company is like, okay, make these albums, we'll get you on tour, and that's how we'll market you. How did they react to Yes?
We were very lucky that Atlantic Records, Arma Ertegun, who was the head of Atlantic, he started Atlantic Records because he loved collecting records, So he had jazz records, blues records. He helped to record Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, jazz musicians, anybody. And then Yes came along, and it's like, you carry on doing what you're doing, John, sort of thing. And there were times when the manager would come up and say, I think the record company would like you to do another Fragile album like Roundabouts and things like that. And I said, get lost. You're the manager. We're the musicians. We're going to do a large-scale piece of music called And You and I. And then, oh boy, we're going to do Close to the Edge. And so on and so on. Because you're inspired to be doing great, different kinds of music. Audiences would sit there and listen very, very quietly. You could hear a pin drop with 20,000 people. It was unbelievable. That people would just sit there and listen to Close to the Edge all the way through. And it was like, it inspired the band to perform it as great as we could every gig. And then we put on a visual show. We got the laser beams happening. You're putting on a whole concept idea. And that's what Yes did and many other bands did all the way through the 70s. And that was the great awakening in music. And then the punks came, punk and disco. And we just kept going. It's so funny.
How did the album Close to the Edge change things for the band? Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to me that's sort of like the demarcation point, the one where you went, okay, they have a good band, we've got some great album, and then this one comes out and it's like, oh, now we've got something different, unique. This is a whole new musical entity. This is, I mean, am I right? Is that sort of the one that was like the turning point where it was just...
Yeah. And thank you for those kind words, because after we finished the album, Bill Bruford left the band. He did my head in, because I thought we'd created a masterpiece that was far beyond my dreams, in a way. And then Bill said, I'm leaving the band. And I said, why? He said, because I want to join King Crimson. I said, why? So then I had doubts about the whole idea of doing a long piece of music. But then I got more inspired. I read a book and wanted to do cryptographic portions and take it a little bit further. And then again, you go on these musical adventures, and you feel like you're being pushed in this direction by some energy that surrounds us all. You just don't do it, tying everybody up and making them play this music. Chris was into it. Steve was into it. Alan was into it at that time. Rick in Topographic wasn't so into it. He was doing Six Wives of the Angry the Eighth at the same time. Everybody was like getting on with their life. So, as I said the other day, if we hadn't done sort of Topographic Oceans, I don't think we'd have got to Awaken. And Awaken to me, is one of those glorious moments where no matter what, whenever I hear them, I know it's a great piece of music. Whether it's commercial or not is not the point,
I do see that we have about 7 minutes left, so I'd love to explore more, but I'm just going to get over here, since we were talking about technology with that other album.
Carry on.
Good.
We'll carry on. There's no rush.
Good. Well, thank you for that. But I'm going to ask you about 90125, because, with the that other album we mentioned before, you had fans send music and you had this participation and stuff, but with 90125... Yeah. We had the advent of MTV and music videos. How did that change the band in terms of, again, record company expectations, band expectations, and then having a hit with Owner of a Lonely Heart? I remember very specifically sitting in front of the TV, seeing that video and going, ooh, who is that? I like that. And that again was a new chapter for the band, because now you were getting people like me at the time, who was maybe too young to go to shows or unable to maybe see you while you're touring in London. Here I am sitting in Montreal, but now you're in my living room every day. How did that affect the band and what you started doing musically?
Well, the interesting thing at that time was technology was really expanding. The beginning of the 80s, and I was hearing music by this producer called Trevor Horn. He did an album with Malcolm McLaren, who was the manager of the punk rock Sex Pistols, and he'd done an album called Duck Rock, and it was magnificent. It was like a movie on TV, on a record to me. And there was a lot of sampling going on, which was a new concept in music. You could sample big band sounds, or as we did with Owner of a Lonely Heart, as samples of James Brown, all that sort of James Brown samples. And when I first heard the recordings, I was in happy shock, because Chris called me up and said, where are you, John? I was in south of France at the time. I was writing music about the artist Marc Chagall, one of the projects that's lying in wait for people to hear and see. And I went to London and met up with Chris, and he played me the tracks, and I said, my God, these are incredible. And that was One of the Lonely Hearts, all these vocalizing things that they'd done. I was mesmerized. And he said, look, John, we'd like you to sing on the record. And I just said, oh my God, this is perfect for me. I didn't tell him that. I just thought, this is perfect, because they gave me free rein to write lyrics and choruses here and there. One of a Lonely Heart was already a hit in the minds of the record company. They'd already said, that's going to be a hit, we're going to make it a hit around the world. And that's the power of record companies. They spend a lot of promotioning, that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, people started to love One of the Lonely Heart. It was number one around the world. And it was a great life, a great experience to go through. It didn't change my perception of music. It just changed my sort of love of the business. And, to be number one around the world is a great experience to go through. It's very, very Spinal Tap.
Well, but it is a great experience, and it was a great video, and it did, it took a Montrealer out of his little comfort zone and showed him something new. So, thank God for much music in our case, not MTV, but.
There's some great music and visuals, videos like Aha, which is a Swedish band, and then Police came along.
I know them.
They took the world by storm, and the MTV made it happen for them. So we had a great experience with the Owner of a Lonely Heart tour with MTV, but then we did Big Generation, and by then, MTV ruled the world, and the only way to get a hit record was to make a video. So we'd make videos for MTV and they'd turn them down. And so you get into a situation that I just started thinking, I don't want to do this all the time. This is not fair. So by the end of the 80s, I went and did ABWH, which was a great experience for me because it was getting back to my musical roots in a way with Steve and Bill and Rick Wakeman. So I was able to sort of jump ship the big generators. I'm going back to the reality of music rather than trying to make a hit record. And that's the way things are.
And the great thing about videos is that you got to learn the term recoupment costs, which, right? Because that's when that's when your vocabulary expanded, and you go, "What do you mean?" Anyway, just quickly,
been there.
Yeah, you've been there. Right? We know what that's all about. Quintessential, and I'm able to say the word quintessential. Yes, the 50th anniversary tour. Talk to me about that real quick. It, of course, has come to an end. Will there be more Yes with you and Trevor and Rick? And, you know, there was a little bit of debate online about should the band use the name Yes, and of course, well, why not?
I agree.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely something to be made yet. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's been in the business forever. And in this music world, there's not many people that I talk to because I just get on with my work because I'm just too busy making and creating. But I spoke to him last year about making the perfect, not the perfect Yes album, but the best Yes album that's going to finish the idea of Yes. And I said, maybe 2020 is a good time to do it. Maybe it's in the air. I sense the idea of doing a couple of long pieces of music and some, fire and thunder and lightning pieces of music. And I've written a couple of things that I think would work. But it's finding the right time, the right place, and the right people to join in and do it. And that's in the lap of the gods, as they say.
Well, let's hope they shine upon you. And let me just sort of combine the new album, 1,000 Hands, with my next question. So Steve is on it. Alan White is on it. I'm assuming that you had to reach out to them to get permission to use their work. In fact, did you have to reach out to Steve Allen and say, "Hey, I'm putting out this album. May I use these tracks that we recorded all these years ago"?
Well, it was Chris and Alan that played on the tracks years and years ago, right. And I got their permission.
Okay.
But Steve just played on the track in December.
Oh.
Just now. We were finishing the album, and the last track we were sorting out whether we wanted to use it. And I said, there's a certain part in the last third of the song where it's just sort of, nothing's happening. So I should ask Steve to play on it, because that could help. And he played on it. It's called Now and Again, actually. And so when he played on it, all I could do was, I got to sing on it. So I sang this song to him about who we've been in our life and what we've created in our life, and we've been friends forever. And that was a very warm feeling that I had when I sang that. And I'm sure that Steve felt the same way. And I even thought maybe I'll get in touch with Steve next year and maybe do some work together. You never know. You never know in this life what's going to happen next.
Well,
I just know. Sorry?
I was just going to say, and that's what I was sort of going to get to is, do you see yourself working with the guys again? Now, I have to admit, I thought the work with Steve had been done back in the 90s, and you were, so it's even more exciting to know that it was done like 6 months ago or 7 months ago. Which is, it sort of warms the cockles of your heart as a fan to know, hey, these guys don't hate each other. They're not at each other's throats. So
no.
Oh, good.
It's like, believe me, it's very much like family. Family never get on all the time, but when we get on, we love each other, And no matter what, when we did the Hall of Fame, I couldn't wait to see Bill. It was amazing. And he broke my heart when he left the band. But I always loved the guy. I always loved what he did with Earthworks and Zeppelin with King Crimson. So you bump into them again and you want to hug them because, we're all from the same world. We're musicians and we're sort of musical brothers, and it never leaves you.
Good. So hopefully in 2020, maybe we can get everybody back together and do something, whether it's an album or a show or a tour or anything. I think it would be nice to sort of put the cherry on top at the end, and just say, hey.
I think so. I'll give you a call when it starts, okay?
Yeah, please. And then I'll finish with this, because I know that we're already over our time, but in 1976, July 24th, so we're going to be celebrating, what's our math on that, 43 years, right, I guess, for Elias of Sunhillow, if I said it correctly.
Yeah, I'm doing a couple of tracks on the new show that I'm doing, which really is great.
Well, good, and I'm hoping to be there in fact, on July 24th, your tour starts, so it'll be 43 years to the day. But just quickly on that first album, I just want to know, what was sort of the point where you got in your career and you said, okay, I've got Yes, we're doing great, but I just want to go out and do this by myself and have a different voice than what's going on with Yes, and say something musically that is different than Yes. What was it? Was it born out of frustration? Was it born out of excitement? Was it born out of, boy, I just got so much music that I can't do one album a year with Yes, I've got to do more. Where did that come from? Well, because you're prolific.
It's interesting. Yeah, it was interesting at that time. I bumped into an old friend who actually was the producer on the second Yes album, Tony Colton. He was in a band called Heads, Hands and Feet, a very, very good band. So I always got on with Tony. And it was like in whatever the year, 1976, when he came by the house and he said, I've just spent 3 months at music school learning to play the piano and learning to write music. And I went, oh my God, that's what I should be doing. Back in my mind, I'm thinking that. And then I thought, I wasn't very good at school. So how can I teach myself about music? And I collected these instruments and I had them in my garage. And I thought, well, why don't I write an album? And I'll learn all the instruments. So that's what I did. I started writing the songs and the story and learning to play instruments for a period of 3 months, and made this album called Elias of Sunhillow. And that's how it happened. It's just a feeling that I needed to go to school or musical university or something like that. And that's what I did. And I learned so much by creating all the instruments and singing all the songs and harmonies. And the album is totally me as a human being. And I felt very, very, I went through hell and high water to do it. It wasn't like that easy. There was a certain point I thought I'd gone crazy. And I woke up one morning having tried to mix something for a week. I had tried to mix one piece of music for a week. It just wouldn't sink in. There was all this, technically speaking, the tracks would not play with each other for some reason. And I must have been mixing it like 20 times a day for a week. And my engineer had to go home. He couldn't stand it anymore. And I woke up in the morning, one morning, the sun was shining through the garage windows. And I said, what happened last night? And I went, wait a minute. Oh, I tried to mix it at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I went over and I played it through. And it was perfect. And I couldn't believe that everything was in time with each other. And that I just sat down and cried. And I was on the verge of madness. And then out of that, and then I got the album finished. And it was like, I felt like I'd got a diploma in musicianship. Something like that.
Well, anybody who can sort of self-teach themselves the sitar deserves a diploma for his wall, because that is one.
Thank you.
That is one tough instrument. You. Yeah. So if I come down to the July 24th show, I'll bring you a diploma for your wall for learning the sitar, and I will remind folks that the new album, Thousand Hands, is coming out, or depending if you go to a show, it's probably available. You can go to jonanderson.com. The tour runs July 24th to September 1st. No Canadian dates, but we are going to change that. We are going to have to make that happen, because we need you in Canada.
Sure. For sure.
In fact, I'll end on this. It's just really, a little Canadian content. fans up here in Canada have always been early to embrace bands like Styx, bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, sort of bands that are outside of the hit single kind of thing. And there was a great appreciation for, yes, you could come here and play the Montreal Forum. You probably could have done a residency back in the 70s. What was it about? I mean, quite frankly, you probably could have. What was it about Canada, but specifically Quebec, where just fans went, yeah, we like these guys, and we will. Did you get a sense of anything, any kind of special connection where you just went, oh, okay, there's something going
on? I have a story, Mitch. I got this story in the mid-'80s. After 90125, everything changed, and I was a big rock star and everything. The record company wanted me to make another record by myself and solo album, so they gave me a check of money to make an album. And then they asked me what I was going to do. I said, well, I'm going to go to Puerto Rico and sing with some big bands, and then go to Cuba and sing with some big bands. I was so into that kind of music. It was very deep Latino energy, So they stopped the check and then said, you can't do that. And I said, okay, what should I be doing? 1 second. Okay, sorry, Mitch.
Yeah, no worries.
So the record company said, look, would you like to do a record in Los Angeles? And we can get a band to be your backup band, record with them. And I said, okay, who's the band? And they said, Toto. And I said, oh, wait a minute. They're all session musicians, and they're really great people. I've met a couple of them. So I did an album called City of Angels. Now, I thought it was a very commercial album. For the first time in my career, I wrote with Lamont Dozier 3 songs, who was Dozier, Holland, Dozier, Holland, Dozier, Holland, who wrote all the great songs of Motown. And I thought I was on a runner to become a pop star for some reason. And so the album came out, and it didn't sell. It didn't sell at all. So about 5 years ago, I was asked to go up and play at this festival up in northern Quebec. So it might be 7 years ago. And I was doing my acoustic tour with my guitar. And I said, okay, I'll bring my guitar up and I'll come and sing for you guys. I went up to this little town up in northern Quebec and arrived at the hotel, and the guys who were doing the festival, they said, come around the corner, our office is there, and you can meet all the people. I said, oh, very nice. So I walked around, and they had speakers outside, and they were playing City of Angels. So I walked in, I said, you don't have to play it, it's okay. And they said, what do you mean? I said, you're playing this because I'm here. And they said, no, we like this album. And I said, really? Yes, it was in the top 10 in Quebec when it came out. I said, well, it was the only place in the world where it was a hit. Isn't that crazy?
I'm not surprised. Fans here, when they latch on to something, they will make it, number one. And of course, in the City of Angels, listen, you can't go wrong when you have Steve Lukather on an album.
Right, of course.
That guy's a monster.
No, but I was always very grateful that somebody in this world liked the album.
Yeah, well, but it makes sense that it's Quebec because, we're one of those where you look at these bands like Supertramp, like we just latch on to some bands with a different sound, and it just becomes. True. And what we do here is we stick with you. So you can have a 30-year career, 40-year career. You can fall off the face of the earth everywhere else in the world, and you can come here, and it's going to be sold out, and it's going to be appreciated. I mean, just look at Dennis DeYoung. He the last time he came to Quebec, he did a 7-night stand, and it wasn't expected. He booked one show, it sold out. He booked another one, sold out. Got to 7 shows. That's what
incredible.
Yeah, so hopefully we can.
Incredible.
Yeah, hopefully we can do the same with you and convince you to come up here, and we will. I know.
I want to come out there. It's just that we can't get the promoter, the agent sorted out. Maybe I got to speak to some people.
Yeah, you tell them to call me. I have a list of promoters that I work with. I'll get you booked. And anyway, folks, 1,000 Hands, Chapter 1. Yeah, my pleasure. The tour starts at jonanderson.com. As we say in Quebec or in Montreal, merci beaucoup. And thank you, by the way, for all the music over the years. It's been inspiring, and it's been a soundtrack to my life and many other people's lives. And just thank you. You have shared your talents with us, and hey, we're grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mitch. Wish you well.
You too. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, perfect.
You're listening to Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon. Rock Talk.